Hey gamers, Gecko here. So, the Arxis showcase, huh? Safe to say that many of you were very upset with the showcase that Arc System Works put on for the public. And I can't blame you, because I'm also quite upset with everything that happened. It's safe to say that a lot of people in the Guilty Gear and surrounding Arc System Works communities were really excited for what was about to happen. It was the first time we were getting a direct presentation from the company that makes our favorite fighting games, and we didn't get anything we expected. In fact, we got a lot of different stuff, a lot of unexpected things, and a lot of news that we already knew. But where did the problem stem from? What caused everyone to be so angry? And what actually happened? If you haven't watched the showcase, I have a reaction up on this channel, which you can go and watch if you really want to sit through it. But Arc System Works didn't really show anything fighting game related, or anything related to any of their current titles. The things that they did show related to their current titles weren't massive. Uni 2 and Hunter x Hunter both got a tiny spotlight in the middle of the show, but they were both basically saying, this game is coming out, and this game is out. The most news we got that was fighting game related is that we're going to see the new Uni character at Anime Expo, which I'm not sure if a lot of you know, but most Guilty Gear players aren't going to Anime Expo. It's an extremely expensive convention in an extremely expensive part of the world, and all of the tickets on Thursday, when they're doing the Lucy showcase, have already sold out, so it's not likely that a lot of people can go last minute. And let me tell you, that was all of the fighting game stuff they showed. Everything else they showed in the showcase were smaller games. Games created by tinier teams on less budget, but were made by respected and trusted developers and artists in different scenes. The two ones that really stood out to me were the visual novel-like game that was shown at the start of the showcase that is exclusive to Switch 2, and the beat-em-up type game that was shown in the middle of the showcase, which is made by an independent developer. Arxis is helping publish both of these games, either worldwide or simply in Asia. There's also smaller titles being created by different studios. Bubble Bobble got an announcement of a game, as well as a developer from a game that I've never heard of, but people seem to trust him with stuff. But these weren't terrible announcements, they were just smaller games. As well as Daisuke announcing his newest project, and this is kind of where the issues begin to show themselves. Before Daisuke showed the project that he's been working on, which, fun fact, the trailer for the project is shorter than the speech that he gives before showing it, he began talking about a bit of an interesting problem in the gaming industry right now. Smaller games are harder to make right now. It's not uncommon for developers to not take a chance on smaller or less improved IPs and ideas because they're worried that they're not going to be able to make their money back. This has led to a pretty weird phenomenon in the gaming space where there's now two types of games. There's AAA games with massive budgets and massive developers working on them, and indie games with extremely small teams of, at minimum, one person working on the entire game, which are generally more experimental and also way smaller. But there used to be a middle category, a smaller space where moderately sized teams worked on moderately sized projects. You can't see it in my background, but I have a shelf of PlayStation 2 games, and in this era and the era before it, a lot of developers were working on weirder, smaller games with smaller teams. Games like the Ape Escape series, Killer 7, Thrillville, Scalar, made by Ass to Mouth Games. All of these games were smaller in budget and smaller in scope, but they were all very successful and very well loved. Basically every single one of these games I have in my hand, I love, and other people love as well. They're seen as either cult classics or definements of genres. Well, okay, maybe none of them are seen as definement of genres, but they're all at least seen as cult classics. And these kind of games don't really get made anymore because they're a risk. Could you really imagine someone trying to make Killer 7 nowadays? It's just not gonna work. And Daisuke talks about this, he addresses this issue. And he says he wants Arc System Works to invest in this space. So he himself is working on a smaller project, and the company is branching out to help other developers work on smaller projects too, and that's good. That is a good thing. So, what was the problem? Well, he also says a line that really encapsulates the entire issue. Arc System Works is a fighting game company. It's safe to say that the fighting game pillar of Arc System Works is its biggest pillar. I have a poster of Johnny from Guilty Gear Strive behind me. It's the one that I definitely care about the most. Because of that, a lot of people expected fighting game news from this showcase. And while it is still good for them to branch out, and several of us, me included, predicted that they would be showing non-fighting game things, there was basically no fighting game news in the entirety of the broadcast. Now, with them branching out, this wouldn't necessarily be a bad thing, but the culture around a lot of Arxis fighting games right now is weird. Unless your name is Grand Blue, you don't really get a lot of news about your current game. Guilty Gear Strive isn't in a bad state. We're getting at least one more DLC character, but there is a lot of mystery around the future with it. Mainly the question of if we're getting another season. Strive has been going on for 4 years, which, if you don't know, for fighting games is a really long time of active development. Basically, every Guilty Gear game before this didn't have as long of an active development cycle. They all were replaced by something else. XX is a little bit of an exception here, as it was made throughout the entirety of the 2000s, but XRD didn't last this long, and most of the BlazBlue games didn't last that long either, with them getting massive sweeping changes between title updates. 4 years for an anime game is a long time, so people are kind of expecting the end to be on the horizon. It's not uncommon for it to go longer though. Dragon Ball FighterZ had a run of around 6 years of active development, but that was a little bit weirder. The things definitely started slowing down once we got to the end of Dragon Ball's life. For example, while the last patch was in 2024, Labcoat 21, the latest DLC character in Dragon Ball, was released in 2022. So while there was still technically 2 years of patches for the game, active new content kind of dried up around 4 years into the lifespan of the game. So, people are wondering what's going to happen with Strive. On the one hand, it would make sense for the game to have run its course at this point. It's a bit of an older game, you know, it's a Guilty Gear game that people didn't really think was necessarily going to last this long, so maybe Arxis have run dry and they're not sure what to do with it. On the other hand, we're getting a crossover character for the first time in Guilty Gear history, as well as ranked matchmaking within the next 2 months. These are really weird things to end on for a fighting game, especially when there's still characters that haven't been added to Strive that people have been asking for a long time. And if I'm to be entirely honest, Strive numbers are still really good. Normally, games kind of just finish when they've run their course, and they're replaced with something else. Street Fighter 6, Tekken 8, both of these were released at the end of the previous game's life cycles, but they were announced while support was still going on. If you remember, Luke was added to Street Fighter V to sort of bridge the gap between the games. We don't really know what the next 1v1 game is from Arc System Works. We know what the next game is from them, being Marvel Token, but it's a tag fighter, and Arxis have had tag fighters and single-player games coexist before. Dragon Ball FighterZ has gone alongside Guilty Gear when it originally released, and speaking of, Marvel Token is a massive question mark. It's kind of the big thing that's making everyone wonder what the fuck is going on. It is seemingly an absolutely massive project, with several massive titans of the industry coming in to help Arc System Works, but we don't know much about it. And that's not even mentioning Arxis' other elephant in the room. What the hell's gonna happen with BlazBlue? BlazBlue's kind of just been left to dry and handed out to other people for the past couple of years now. So, people were kind of hoping we'd get something from BlazBlue. It is a little bit weird since the main lead has left Arc System Works But Daisuke isn't working on Guilty Gear, so they could definitely hand BlazBlue to someone else. All of these questions were kind of just floating in the air and around the Arxis showcase. So when they said they were announcing new titles and something new by Daisuke, a lot of people immediately thought we're gonna be getting news on fighting games. Because Arc System Works is a fighting game company. And if I'm honest, I added to this rhetoric. And things around it also did. I do feel quite bad since I basically said we would be getting Lucy news at the Arc Showcase. And I apologize for hyping people up when it turned out we didn't. I shouldn't have bought into the hype and kept everyone's expectations low. That's my bad. But can you really blame me? The key art being shown randomly on a Wednesday afternoon really implied that we were going to be getting some kind of news about Lucy at this show, which would have made sense. But I guess not. I guess at some point we're going to be seeing her in the next 2 months. Well, we're definitely going to be seeing her soon. At least some of us. Thank you, Arc System Works. But it led to a situation where everyone's expectations and the reality of what the show was were at odds with each other. And this is where we bring it back round to the real point. Arxis fucked up on communication. Again. Arc System Works, going into this, knew that they were primarily a fighting game company, to the point where they say it in the actual presentation. They also said that they'd be announcing new titles and information on existing titles, as well as something new by Daisuke. With this information, I feel it is pretty easy to assume that we're going to be getting some fighting game news from all of this. The logic tracks out extremely easily. But then there was no fighting game news in the entire thing, so people were annoyed. We felt kind of tricked. And this could have been easily avoided by Arxis telling us, hey, we're branching out. Here's the new stuff we're working on. If they'd have simply said something along those lines, a lot of people would have been way less angry. And also way less confused. I understand that the company needs to expand if it wants to continue growing. You can't just keep making BlazBlues and Guilty Gears for the rest of the company's life. It's just not 100% sustainable. But it really feels like the hype of fighting game fans was leveraged against us to make us watch an advertisement of stuff that none of us really cared about. If Arxis wants to move away from fighting games and have their logo associated with more generic action games, that's fine. But you needed to tell us that before announcing a presentation. Because you just kind of let hype grow crazy, and then everyone ended up being disappointed. I do feel complacent in this. People have noted that this is a very Arc System Works move, and we really should have seen it coming. But, hey, at least we got a new Bubble Bobble announced, right? What does this mean for the future of Strive and Arxis fighting games? Who knows? Maybe all the projects they're working on will absolutely blow up and they'll just move out of the fighting game scene. We won't see another Guilty Gear or BlazBlue ever again, and we'll just kind of end here. I highly doubt that's what's going to happen. Companies like Capcom and Bandai are able to have multiple pillars, and I think that's what Arxis wants to recreate. But for the future of Strive specifically, we're still left in a kind of limbo state. Will we get a patch soon? Will we get ranked soon? Will we get Lucy before Evo? Who knows? It's all up in the air. I personally, though, wouldn't expect much news going from the month forward. I think at this point we're going to be entering a bit of a quiet period until Evo. So, enjoy the patch while it's still there, I guess. Still, if something does happen, you want to make sure that you're subscribed to the channel, because I'll talk about it as soon as it happens. Thank you all for watching. I hope you all enjoyed. I hope you understand why people are mad and see a little bit behind the curtain of how Arxis, once again, fucked up. Let me know how you feel in the comment section down below. Thank you all for watching. I'll see you all next time. Bye-bye.